Hey y'all, welcome back to Ascending with Ashley. I'm Ashley. This is Collective Coffee. Kind of a shot in the dark, but I feel like if I don't put it here, I'm gonna regret it. So let's talk about politics, okay? This was a term that I learned about in LA, because the political theater, is insane. So as we are decolonizing away from propaganda and rhetoric, and as we're learning how these systems work, election time of the year, I heard it called election season, which gave me the ick because it's like awkward. I don't know, it just feels like an awkward. It does what it's supposed to do. It lets you know that this is a seasonal charade, okay? I am a white person. I understand that. So I just want to put this disclaimer here. What I say is not the final say. It's just things that I'm noticing because I enjoy picking apart politics, okay? I have a very deep understanding of the ways in which the system utilizes propaganda and rhetoric and speeches, right? And the timing of everything should be taken into account. On that note, let's talk about Joe Biden making an apology to First Nations Indigenous people from Turtle Island. A lot of people are really grateful and thankful that this statement has been made. He did this the other day. He came here. He's somewhere in Arizona, I think. Maybe it was in Arizona. But the point of the matter is that when a sitting president comes and takes accountability for genocide of a group of people while actively committing genocide very blatantly in other lands, maybe we should look a little bit deeper into the reason that is. The reason that is that Indigenous folks, especially here in Arizona, have been registering to vote at alarming rates compared to the Republicans, right? And Arizona has been known as a Republican state for a very long time. But that shift is coming because Indigenous folks are registering and voting, and there's a lot of political power there. Now, I also don't believe that our vote is the here-all be-all because of the Electoral College. We understand that the Electoral College has the final say of election in this country. However, political power is held by people, right? Okay. That's why they, being the powers that be, put on these little stunts and shows and charades, because there is people power, right? We do have people power. So anyway, when that happened, and I'm on Native TikTok. I follow a lot of Indigenous creators from all over the world. But because of where I live, I make it a point to stay in the loop, right? Because I am a white person and I want to make sure I'm doing what I can to honor and also support efforts. So, yeah, he made this statement and apologized for like the residential schools and the way that these families were torn apart. The Supreme Court did uphold ICWA, which is the Indian Child Welfare Act, last year. Yeah, that was last year, which was great because a lot of people didn't think that this Supreme Court, the one that has, been going kind of balls deep on something like individual rights, would do that. So that's good. That was upheld. What that does is keeps Indigenous children with their Indigenous families, right? Because what Joe Biden apologized for was the way in which the federal government took children from their families and put them in residential schools. That was a big part of what he was apologizing for. I didn't watch the whole thing because I should have before speaking on it, but I would prefer to see the reactions of people who were impacted by that, right? And listen to what they say about it. So I'm just echoing and uplifting that message. I'm not saying anything no one else has. I'm just reminding you that 2 weeks before an election, where you had to step down as the candidate and put your, vice in that position, 2 weeks before this election, they're ensuring the Native vote goes towards Democrats, right? Because a lot of Native folks are, I've seen, especially where I live, people talking about Trump being the one to vote for because he will uphold sovereignty for Indigenous folks, because he's talked about that. So again, when we vote on single issues, when we vote with ourselves central, right? That's when we are upholding parts of an oppressive system, right? And I'm not telling anybody to do anything. I'm just saying, when we center a one issue vote, because we are or not impacted by it, that's when the system uses that vote to continue oppressing others, right? So this man came here, apologized for residential schools, for the genocide of Native Americans, without reparations, without acknowledging the treaties, right? Without acknowledging the uranium that the government and corporations are moving on Indigenous land right now in this area. There's also Native folks who have talked about what's happening in the border crosses through Indigenous land, the To'oro Nation. I don't think I'm saying that correctly. And so Indigenous folks on the Arizona and Mexico border the border goes right through their own reservation lands. And Israel has a lot of surveillance use on the border, not to mention law enforcement, border patrol, all of these other entities, right? That's funny, I meant agencies, but yes, they are entities. Because they feed off of power and fear, right? So I just wanted to put this here because remember that timing is everything. Even with Beyonce showing up, the Eminem situation in Detroit, they know damn well that Michigan is undecided because of the Muslim population in Michigan, right? That is a very well-known fact. It has been for years, or for months, I mean, because of the situation in Palestine. And so when you're watching the way that the politicians utilize timing, what's the word I'm looking at? Celebrities, right? And they're trying to extract an emotion to ensure votes. So this should tell you a couple of things. First of all, we are powerful. Second of all, you should vote for Jill Stein because she's the only one that wants to end this shit. But I don't think they're going to let Jill Stein in anyway. But again, I'm voting for her. A lot of the undecided people are. But I just think it's interesting because the push these last 2 weeks is like very intense, right? The campaigning hasn't even been that intense. And so all of a sudden there's just this big push because they realize, I mean, these, the people who are like studying the analytics and statistics of what we, the people, are going to do are telling them, these politicians, and then the politicians are reaching out to the celebrities. Remember that Hollywood's role in oppression and in capitalism is to keep you, the person with power, power, strength in numbers, spending power, right? To keep you distracted from everything else, right? And so they had Eminem get on and endorse Kamala Harris, and I'm sure he got a cut from that, right? I love Eminem, but when you involve yourself in political schemes, you're just as bad, right? Beyonce, there's a lot of fucking shit going on around Beyonce, so she was an interesting choice because a lot of people are like equating her to like devil status right now. There's like a lot of Beyonce conspiracy theorists. But she wasn't alone. I think Kelly Rowland went out with her too. And so it's just this big pitch to. And then I also just saw a Kamala Harris ad. And you guys remember the millennials. They've been targeting the millennials for a couple years with the Super Bowl shows, right? Having us feel in our nostalgia, right? That's why we're doing the project Chasing Nostalgia, because we want to regain that power for ourselves. We don't want them to be able to take that from us. But millennials are super hella being targeted because I just saw this Kamala Harris ad. You remember those Now CDs? I know you do. If you grew up in the 90s, you remember the Now CDs. And they're like long ass infomercials for these fucking CDs. And it was that her campaign team took that idea that now this is the time for, I don't know, economic something growth, I think was what it was. But they used like the whole fucking text and layout of the Now CDs for her campaign. I don't pay attention to Trump, but Trump is ridiculous. But either way, I just want you to understand how they, being the powers that be, specifically right now, this final push, you know, I know both of the Obamas have been campaigning for Kamala, but the Joe Biden thing is really. It irks me. It irks me, and I know it irks a lot of other people who it actually impacts more, you know, like indigenous folks and native folks, because words can be said, right? And that's what rhetoric is. Rhetoric is just pleasantly placed wording, right? To extract emotional appeal, I guess, to ensure a behavioral impact, right? So they want to extract an emotion from you to ensure that you feel strongly enough about voting for a certain person. That it's very clear that is the system and how it's working. Yes, Indigenous people deserve that apology. However, they also deserve action, right? Whereas this man came here to say a bunch of shit to ensure that people would go vote for Kamala Harris, for the Democratic Party. And instead of coming and saying things and doing his own behavior, like reparations, land back, revising treaties to give land back, right? Stopping the mining, stopping the transporting, right? Removing walls and borders from their own land, right? Those are initiatives of land back. So I don't want anyone to be fooled by what happened. I'm specifically talking to people who are less impacted than this. I mean, if you live there, you know, right? So this is for others to see this as a scope, right? And then also understand that as he was standing behind that podium on Indigenous land, apologizing for genocide, he's been approving genocide on Indigenous land in another country. So don't get fooled by these politicians, because it is politics, okay? And once you awaken to it, once you see it, once you understand it, you're like, oh fuck, okay, whoa. And then you move accordingly. You figure out the best ways for you to support efforts, right? For human rights for everyone, right? Again, we build locally and network globally. So yeah, don't be fooled. We're 2 weeks out from the not even, like a week and a half away from the election now. Not even, like a week and like a day. So don't be fooled by these last minute stints. Honestly, it's not my place to say, but watching that was pretty offensive. So, yeah. Palestinians are spray painting in Gaza to vote for Jill Stein, so I will be voting for Jill Stein. I know other people have joined the campaign. I'm not doing that because of any endorsements or anything. I just feel like consciously that's the correct decision to make, and at least take one vote away from the two monstrosities that are running. Yeah. All right. Have a good one.